Welcome back. Let's take you back to one of our top stories, the resignation of Boris Johnson, who stepped down, or announced at least that he's going to step down as both Prime Minister of the UK, but he's stepping down now as leader of the Conservative Party. He'll remain in post as Prime Minister until his successor has been elected by the Conservatives. That is supposed to happen at a conference in October. Let's get reaction to this with Stephen Gruzd, who is head of the African Governance and Diplomacy Programme with the South African Institute of International Affairs. Good afternoon, Stephen. Good to have you. So Boris Johnson was defiant last night, not so much today. Is this it for him politically?
I think it very much is. He was trying to cling on to power for as long as possible. He faced a lot of insurrection in his own party, not to mention from other political parties. And even in the wake of these many resignations, he was still holding on and clinging on. He survived a leadership challenge within the Conservative Party a couple of weeks ago, but I think the pressure just got too much. Over 50 officials had resigned, and they all cited his behavior and his morals, etc., as making their positions untenable. So you'll never say never in politics, but for the moment, I think he's lost a lot of ground.
Do you think, though, that surviving the previous scandals, be it Partygate most recently, or the controversy around the renovations done to his official residence, do you think that made him, to a degree, perhaps more reckless, and that he felt, to a degree, invincible, that no one would be able to basically get him out of 10 Downing because he'd been able to survive these other major scandals, and people were going on about how he had a reputation for doing exactly that, getting out of sticky situations?
The British media were calling him Teflon because nothing sticks to him. And certainly he did survive some very big scandals. And when you do think that perhaps you're there to stay and that he would see out his term. But, he said himself the tide had turned and the herd had moved. And when the herd moves, the herd moves. And for him, in the end, the writing was on the wall, and he lost the support of his party and therefore has resigned as Tory party leader.
How do you explain, though, the loyalty from members of the Conservative Party, including members of his own cabinet, to Boris Johnson, given that calls for him to go had now been going for at least a year? I mean, just last month, there was a no-confidence vote that he survived, but by the worst margin seen, or expected at least.
So people will make their own political decisions and their own political calculations. And I think for a long time, his cabinet backed him and was loyal. The front benches of the Conservative Party backed him, maybe not so much the backbenchers. They had a huge majority in Parliament and was politically in a very good position. But, and now once they're talking about a leadership contest within the Conservative Party, those that were too closely associated with Johnson might be, sorry, just one moment. Those too closely associated with Johnson might be tainted and may not prevail in the leadership contest that we are now set to see in the next few weeks.
And I want to cast our eyes then to that point, the election of a new leader for the Conservative Party. We're sitting here watching all of this play out in South Africa. Should we expect any shift at all in South Africa-UK relations with the election of a new leader, or is it just something that's a major international headline, but we shouldn't worry about?
So I think we have a very strong relationship with the United Kingdom. I think there was good chemistry between Prime Minister Johnson, or ex-Prime Minister Johnson, and President Ramaphosa, and the relations were good. I don't think there'll be too much of a change in South Africa's relations with the UK. We'd have to wait and see what happens with this leadership contest, and indeed if a general election is forced. Many people saying that Johnson shouldn't stay on while they select a new leader, that he should go now. And opposition parties, Sir Keir Starmer in Labour, has called for new elections and has said that they would bring a motion of no confidence if Johnson stays on and the party keeps him on until they find a new leader.
And it's interesting that you mentioned the Labour Party, because I suppose it has a similar problem to what opposition parties in this country do, where there's a great deal of frustration with the government of the day, but people don't seem frustrated enough to vote the other way. How do you explain that?
Well, the Conservatives have been in for 12 years, and we've seen a number of different prime ministers there. David Cameron, Theresa May, Boris Johnson, they've all had quite handsome majorities, except for May. But they continue in office, and the Labour Party, of course, is electable, and maybe is more electable under Sir Keir Starmer. With the previous leader, who went up against Johnson, they were just not considered government material. But yes, I think there are some common strands with South African political parties that are very opposed to the government, but maybe not electable at the polls.
The phenomenon of Boris Johnson, he's not your typical politician, be it because he's known for getting out of sticky situations, but he's not a conventional politician, is he? But he managed in 2019, campaigned on a message of getting Brexit done, managed to get a large enough victory, similar or the largest since the election of Margaret Thatcher in the 80s. What was it about him that resonated so much with Brits?
You could criticize him for a lot of things, but one thing he didn't lack was charisma and showmanship. With his unusual hairstyle and his accent and the way he talks, he's a very magnetic personality. He draws attention to himself. He was the mayor of London. He was the foreign secretary, and is used to the limelight. I think he just had that enigmatic quality that people like. He was unconventional in a way that, similar to Donald Trump, that people just wanted to watch and see what he was going to do and say next. And I think, as I say, at that point, Labour under Jeremy Corbyn just was not an alternative that the British public was prepared to vote for.
Stephen Gruzd, head of the African Governance and Diplomacy Program at the South African Institute of International Affairs. Thank you for your time, sir.